And that big fight is January the 21st. It is Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr, which I think is an absolutely fantastic fight. I really do like this one. Eubank Jr, I think he's it's almost stock's gone up. He's not had a fight, but the stock's gone up right now. He's as high as he's ever been, I think, and he's a genius when it comes to press conferences and the mind games. And I almost feel like Liam Smith might be falling into that trap already. But it's a great card, isn't it? Great card, and well done for putting this one on.
Yeah, thank you. No, to be honest, just as a boxing fan, I'm like you. There's certain fights where you're just excited. You know what's to come. You know the styles. You know the personalities. You know it's going to be absolute fireworks. And yeah, I think we're now sold out in January at the Manchester Arena, which just shows, I think, the excitement around this fight. It's a special fight because there's always been question marks, hasn't there, about Eubank Jr at world level. Yeah. I truly believe Liam Smith is world level. And I think for either one of them, it will be the biggest win on their records. I believe that. I know Liam Smith has become a world champion, but I think this is it's an absolute monster, and it's impossible to call. And you speak to people in the sport, a lot of people I speak to are adamant that Liam Smith's going to win this fight, and that's what makes it very, very special. Yeah,
I'm one of those people. I've said that as well. I'm more, what have you done for me lately? And I've looked at Liam Smith and that win against Anthony Fowler and Jesse Vargas, even the fight he had in Russia, which I think he won as well.
That was a terrible decision.
Terrible decision. So he's on a good run. Whereas Chris, you know, you look at his fights, he starts really fast and it's explosive, and then he starts to wane a bit towards the end. Well, so I kind of just wonder if Liam can stay in this one for the first sort of 5 or 6. I know Liam gets better and stronger down the stretch.
Liam will definitely stay in it for the first 5 or 6, that's for sure, because that's what he does. You know, he's one of those fighters that's teak tough, comes forward, looks to wear his opponents down, work the body really well. They've got history together, these two, with sparring and whatnot. And I think we're in a situation here with Liam Smith that I don't think that he would be able to live a normal life. That's how he feels if he loses to Eubank. That's
what it reminds me of. It reminds me of Bellew Hay, where you've got Hay. When you first saw the fight made, you'd be like, hey, the brash, the superstar, really, and then the working class scouser that has worked his way up to world level. And in the end, it was an easy night for Tony Bellew, and I think it's got that feeling, that clash of styles, that clash of personalities.
I think it's fair to say as well, it's a must-win fight for both of these guys. You know, it's not like a loss is like, oh, career's over, but at this stage of their careers and where they've both been, it is really, because that rebuilding process is going to be too much. The winner goes on and possibly boxes for a world title this year, and the loser has to rebuild again. And I don't think that they would have the ambition to do that at this stage of their career, you know. So there really is a lot on the line. And you look at the undercard of this one as well. You know, when you get one of these fights where you go, like, it's all about the main event. Well, actually, look at the undercard, and the undercard is very, very impressive as well. You know, you got like Richard Riakporhe on there against Glowacki, who's a former world champion, and that is a great fighter. And you've got Joseph Parker on there against Massey as well. And, you know, it's a big opportunity for Massey. A lot of people have talking about, well, Massey's only a cruiserweight coming up. But let's
be honest, that surprised people. I mean, I understand, but that surprised a lot of people.
But you know, there's a story behind that, Addy. There is a story behind that. You know,
it has to be a good story.
But listen,
what's the story?
Would you rather, as a boxing fan, and I'm a boxing fan, and this is why the undercard is so stacked, because we look at last year and think, you know what, let's put on some absolute monster cards. But when you've got Joseph Parker coming off a defeat like he did, and he, you know, and getting knocked out like he did, we can do what every promoter does, and we can bring over an American with 4 or 5 defeats, and we can give him an experienced guy that's going to give him rounds, and that Joseph Parker will come through. Or we can give him a lad that has been begging for an opportunity, who's a cruiserweight IBO world champion, but has been touted about coming to heavyweight. He's going to come in a lot bigger than everyone thinks. He's from Manchester. He's got a box office event in his back garden, and he's about to get a huge, huge opportunity to fight a top 10 heavyweight. He can punch hard. Anyone that's being sparred with Jack Massey knows his level. What would fans prefer to see? And yes, it's left field. And yes, people have said to me, it's LSD boxing. It's crazy. It's crazy. But at the same time, for me, boxing is about stories. Boxing is about opportunities. Absolutely. And when Jack Massey wants this so much, who am I to say no? We're gonna put on something.
You know, I see what Jack gets out of it. Look, Jack, this is a lifetime opportunity. You beat Joseph Parker, anything else. I don't see what Joseph gets out of it.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's Joseph. It's all about what he's. You know, that was a damaging defeat against.
It was, and I'm actually quite surprised he's back so soon. If
That's
I'm
what I'm
honest
saying.
with you.
And so he's got to have a rebuilding fight coming back.
But I don't
Jack
think-
Massey is about the opportunity, right? And like, if you knew this kid's story, he lost to Richie Riakporhe at cruiserweight, could not get any work, anything, and he's hungry as you like. He wants that opportunity. He's always been, fiddling around, talking about moving up to heavyweight. He gets given this opportunity. I mean, the kid's been working as a scaffolder over Christmas because he hasn't had any work. So this is a big opportunity for him, and he'll treat this as his world title fight. So this is a lot closer than what people give it credit for.
I do agree with Addy though. It's low reward, high risk for Joseph
high
Parker.
risk for
Yeah,
Joseph
absolutely.
But what do we want as fans? Like as a promoter, when I've got a situation where because of Joseph Parker, what happened? We must give him a fight as early as possible. He deserves a fight as early as possible. But when we're there on a pay-per-view promotion, what would we prefer to see? And for me, I prefer to see this every day of the week and give that opportunity to Jack Massey.
Yeah, I think something that could steal the show is Congo versus Usman. I think.
Oh, I agree.
Fantastic opportunity. Chris Congo's only lost to once, and that was to Mickelson, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it
Michael
was.
Mickelson.
Michael
He lost some points
yeah.
to Mickelson.
Lost to him. He's almost been waiting for an opportunity. He gets one now, and that could steal the show. That one.
Yeah, I think Chris Congo is a top fighter. Anyone that goes in there with McKinson knows it's very, very awkward and very difficult. He's been rebuilding. I think Chris will feel he's probably levels above British level, but he's fighting a guy that's never lost. There's a Commonwealth and British title, and exactly, he's tough. He's never actually looked in trouble. He's probably, as you said, could be fight of the night. It's got fireworks all over it.
Yeah.
Can I ask about the pay-per-view element of the card? Obviously, this will be a pay-per-view show, and some will say, how did we come to the decisions to do pay-per-view fights? Is it a case of you have to pay the fighters X amount, and the only way you can do it is by putting it on? Because I was slightly surprised. I remember when you done Clarissa Savannah, I thought that might be pay-per-view, and it wasn't. How do you decide what is pay-per-view and what isn't?
It's the main event. It's usually the cost of the main event, and with Savannah and Clarissa, probably the cost of that was pay-per-view, but at the same time that was an opportunity to women's boxing where we thought, we'll pay this forward and we'll create a legacy. But with someone, Eubank Jr is probably the biggest name in British boxing outside of the heavyweight division. So how do you give him the highest risk fight that he's taken in a long time, a 50-50 fight against a former world champion from Britain that brings a huge audience and a huge crowd of his own, and the biggest name probably he's fought? It's a huge fight, and unfortunately the numbers, in any way that you chop that up, you cannot make this fight otherwise. And for me,
What's it going to be? What's the price?
it'll be £20.
£20. Okay. Have you ever thought of doing lower ones? Serious question. Have you ever thought of doing lower pay-per-views? It seems to be either $19.95 or now jumping up to $26.95. We've seen with Frank doing that. Has there ever been thoughts of doing a $14.95 pay-per-view or a £10 pay-per-view?
£9.99.
Yeah, no, honestly, no, I do wonder sometimes, because it's either not pay-per-view or a high price point. And fans are struggling. Boxing fans always complain about fights being on pay-per-view. Has there been no conversation about doing lower price pay-per-views?
I think that we've always looked at it. I think, unfortunately, we try and keep as much off pay-per-view as possible. We had Taylor Cattrall last year, first undisputed fight on British soil, off pay-per-view. We had Savannah
Is the
Clarissa
rematch going to be on pay-per-view?
off pay-per-view.
Is the rematch going to be on pay-per-view?
It's not been announced yet. We have
That's
as many fights
then,
as we
Ben?
can.
Ben, that's a yes, isn't it?
We have as many fights as we can off pay-per-view, but ultimately we're left with a decision of, do we want to make the big fights or let them go to America? That is the situation. In America, it's $100 a pay-per-view. In the US, the rights fees are 4 or 5 times that amount. If we want to make a big fight in this country and not have them go to Saudi and not have them go to Qatar and not have them go to the US, then you have to make that decision, and that's just how it is.
Quickly.
How are the numbers looking in pay-per-view now compared to a couple of years ago? Because obviously, as Addy has alluded to, there is a lot of people who are struggling financially. Simon's view, I know, is that actually that might increase the number of people who are willing to pay and watch it at home rather than maybe go to the pub and watch it with friends. Is that correlated? Have you seen a drop in numbers or an increase in the last couple of years?
I think on Sky's pay-per-view platform is very, very strong. We did Calm Brook, and that did probably better than we expected. I think there are too many pay-per-views. I think we should all work as hard as we can to not put fights on pay-per-view. But as well, I do agree with Simon. I think at the same time, people are going out there, so a round of drinks can be more than a £20 pay-per-view. And we do have to make a decision in this country, in the sense, do we want the big fights? We're a very small country. We're a very small country, and a lot of fights happen here. And if you want to do it in this country, I think there's no choice. But I think for the right fights, fans will pay. When it's a 50-50 fight with two guys that they really know, and I think the key is 50-50. No disrespect to the Fury Chisora fight. I think a lot of fans were put off by that. But when it's a genuine fight with a lot on the line, I think fans understand that they have to pay for it sometimes.
Yeah, that means it. March, Josh Taylor, Jack Catchall, pay-per-view.